Hey, good afternoon, John Donovan.
Hey, Marty, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good.
Um, I'm taking refuge in reality today,
Uh-huh.
and
Right. Yeah.
reality's got some wonderful things to suggest about it. So I'm happy
Right.
with that. And how are you doing?
I'm doing well. The way I put it is I have both feet firmly planted in my struggle.
Yeah,
Worked
exactly.
really, really hard and diligently to be here with this struggle and participate to the best of my ability, which tells me more about myself, which is
Yeah.
an it was a movie with a big dog, a never-ending story. It just goes on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Well, as we've discussed on this podcast many times, and certainly in our own conversations, there really is no end to the universe of each one of us.
you're right.
Ultimately, because we are synonymous with the universe. So um,
Hmm.
try to find the end of yourself is what I often counsel people. Like, see
Right.
if you see if you can find your boundary, because I don't know
Right.
anybody who has yet.
Right.
But hey,
That's it. Go ahead.
sorry about that. I just want to point out that we're recording this on Friday, the 16th of June, so we're a couple of days before Father's Day, and um, that's something we might
Yeah.
want to talk about. I have a couple other things that um, I think also would be fun to take a look at. Um, but we had our friend Deanna Fow on 6 weeks ago to talk about Mother's Day and maternity,
Hmm.
being a mom in recovery. And well, I'm certainly not a dad. I know that you are. You're not only a dad, but you're a grandfather. And
Hmm.
you've been very kind to share with us on this podcast many times some of the stuff, the struggles that you went through as a dad,
Yeah.
and then being in recovery and what that means. So maybe I thought we could start there and see if there's any reflections that you might want to share. I'm certainly, like I said, I'm not a dad, but I'm a son, and I had a pretty tumultuous and wonderful relationship with my father,
Hmm.
and who himself went into, uh, he wouldn't have called it recovery, but he got involved in exploring himself, exploring particularly himself as a spiritual being by the 1970s. And then he got into AA 12 years before he passed away. He passed away a couple of years ago. So
Hmm.
um, we found that we had this common language um, to where we never came to the end of that exploration either.
Right.
What are we
Right.
what are we each of us learning? And
Yeah.
then maybe if just from your own experience as a facilitator of this work for many years, whether there's anything you've noticed in recovery for dads that dads struggle with, um, maybe differently from moms. I don't know. Just curious.
It's my struggle was um, family abortion, dysfunction, childhood trauma, and the society's definition, admonition to be a man, which had the element of perfection, production, and presentation. And perfection is always come up with the answer, a answer, the answer, fix it. Production is produce everything for everybody. It's like a sense of over responsibility. I'm responsible for happy, healthy, obedient, good looking, well dressed children. And if something goes wrong with them, that's a reflection on me. And I have the right, as the father or man in the house, to administer correction in the form of some type of emotional, verbal, and sometimes physical violence. And I had no idea I was doing that. I thought I was a nice guy giving them the best I got, making sure they got
So
tough.
you're referring to punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or discipline. I didn't call it
Discipline.
punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah, discipline. Make them so they're upstanding citizens, morally correct citizens.
Right.
And I worked in the jail for a 20-year stretch. And that attitude produced a lot of other men who struggle with how to be a loving, caring, nurturing, masculine presence in their family, that's part of the family, not the head of the household or provider. And not that that isn't partially true, but if that's the agreement between me and my partner that I'm head of the household, that does not necessarily give me the authority to inflict punishment. It is simply an agreement that we negotiate and honor each other's path, beliefs, how they perceive, and then negotiate how to work things out that are issues instead of demanding, controlling, being abusive. So my children both got into recovery at the age of 30, and they love me, but they could only stand so much of me at any given moment. And said my own self-discovery, owning that I'm not a role, I'm a human being, masculine. I want to repeat that, masculine human being that has a part in nurturing children to their authenticity. So they got into recovery at 30. One of them is 47, the other one is 45, I believe. Maybe I'm a year off. And they're both self-actualized women. Someplace in my recovery, I got that as a father, I was what I wanted to do instead of control and own was to be the example I wanted them to be and shut my mouth. It's like live the life I want for them with integrity, honesty, compassion. And so I did that. I quit telling them, correcting them. When they would come to me with a problem, I'd get some clarity before they started. Do you want me to listen this time? Do you want me to give you feedback? Or do you want to process this? And for the most part, for the most of those years, they said, Dad, would you be willing to listen? So I took a deep breath, and then all their troubles and all their boyfriends and all this, that, and how to get along, work. And I just said, okay, I want you to know I'm hearing you. And I listened. And they said, thank you. And either was on the phone, they'd hung up, go on their way, or just and I would be anxious, just ask me, I'll tell you. I know. And in this process, 2 years ago, my youngest daughter came up to me and said, Dad, I want you to know that I feel safe around you and I like having you around. So it's been quite a journey. I want to say moniker, I don't know where that word came to my mind, moniker father, in my old belief, had a heavy responsibility to it. And what I've discovered is, me guiding my children up to a certain age to get them ready to take on their own life was what I could have done. I was in my dysfunction, and I had a lot of trauma that I passed on to them as my parents passed on their trauma to me. And it takes a while to sort that out and build trust, and see each other as individuals, along with, them seeing me as a father. There's always that draw, father-daughter, father-son. So, yeah, Father's Day this year, one of my daughters decided to buy me a hat, like an Aussie, kind of like, Indiana Jones type hat. So I'm gonna get me a hat and see how that works out. So, it's all about recovery. Coming from where I was, alcoholic, violent, emotionally, verbally, and physically, to somebody who's working on that issue. I really wish I could say I'm never emotionally or verbally violent. And
Me too, John.
Yeah. And I'm working on it. And I know that anytime I choose to be violent, there's something in me that I'm not either feeling or seeing, or it's the trauma stuck. So I stop, be accountable. I just dismissed you. It was my choice. And I'm working on being a nonviolent man, which is difficult. It's this trauma runs, in my experience, having done this for ACA work for 35 years, and then now this body of work I'm developing called intentional living, being accountable, knowing that I have a pool of subconscious information where I hold my trauma and my old beliefs, and getting into that subconscious pool, and reframing the trauma so that the trauma doesn't drive my life or drive my actions. And that's what the whole accountability thing is about. And just to give you an idea, just the word accountability, if you look it up in the dictionary, is blameworthy. Hold somebody punishable, punish somebody for it, hold somebody accountable. And that's not what I mean by my ability to account for my behaviors without blame or judgment. Just to simply say what the behavior was, like dismissive. I was just dismissive. Take a breath, no blame, no judgment. Just feel feel the impact to them and the impact to me. And when I say I'm dismissive, that phrase has encoded in it the trauma that thought that was a good idea for me to stay safe. If I'm dismissive, then people will move away from me, which I don't rationally want. But that little boy said people are dangerous. You can't trust them. They'll backstab you. They'll gaslight you. They'll punish you or humiliate. Okay, so all that's in the past, and yet the subconscious doesn't know, has no sense of time. So when something happens in my current reality that initiates a feeling tone in that trauma, I go to some kind of avoidant behavior so that goes away. The feeling goes away, either lash out, or I used to drink or work. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I got to work overtime today and tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. Because it was easier going to work than it was being in my household, because it was too much responsibility. That's another word that has drudgery, have to, got to. Now I see my capacity to respond is simply a choice. It doesn't mean have to do something to be of value. So I'm accountable. I'm able to respond in the moment. And I do the best I can. I wish I could tell you, hey, got it, I'm cool. I'm not there yet. So that's why I teach. That's why I'm I don't say do this because that's good for you. Be accountable. Look at your shadow. I am accountable. I look at my shadow. I do this work. It's work I'm in the process of doing, and it works. It's life changing.
You know, I'm going to go on a thin ice here and say something that you might not want to hear, but
Okay.
what the hell? We've been friends a long time. But you know, when you said, I heard you say, I'm not there yet. I'm wondering whether there is an expectation in there that maybe is not necessary. So what if you're where you are and that's good enough? And the reason I say that is because uh, you know, we only have the present moment. And
Yeah.
the I I wanted to I wanted to concur with you about the depth of the trauma. And one of the things that I pay attention to is that when I say things that hold expectations, even if they're benign or even if they're spiritually
Mm-hmm.
advanced or whatever, my trauma is going to use that. And it's going to use that. See, you aren't there yet. What's wrong with you? You screwed up. You got to work harder. And then all of that stuff comes tumbling out. Um, Nothing wrong with it, but what I'm working on right now is there's nothing wrong, period. And that
Okay.
when and I want to tell you a story about what happened to me this week, so to illustrate this. But so when I have a relapse, or as what actually occurred, it seemed like a relapse, and that's a judgment. But actually, what happened was I discovered something about myself of which I wasn't aware. It felt like a relapse because the behavior that showed up was the similar patterned behavior, um, similar to what you were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
diminishing, pushing away, that kind of thing. But it really, because of this practice that you taught me and that you've supported me in doing for all these years, I had a completely different relationship with the experience than I might have had 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
Right.
And
Yeah.
um,
Mm-hmm.
and so for me, it's you know, there's nothing wrong with me. I just am a human being, and human beings include the persistence of this traumatic experience that I think we all have in our childhood, just by the nature of the fact that adult parents cannot know what's going on inside their children. And so there's that gap, inevitable. You can be your parents can be Jesus Christ and Mary, and those people still won't know
Mm-hmm.
what their little infant children's experience is. And so that's just built
Mm-hmm.
in. It's built into the system. And so if there's nothing wrong with that, because it's just built
Mm-hmm.
into the system, and we're on an evolutionary journey to maybe in the long run overcome the deficiencies that creates. Who knows? I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
believe in the possibility
Yeah.
of that. But if it's the case that we don't have any power over that, then we all have this reservoir of unhealed trauma. I have a reservoir that this is what I got reacquainted with this week. I have a reservoir of unhealed trauma, and there's nothing wrong with the fact that I have a reservoir of unhealed trauma. And I'm learning um, slowly to welcome that information, even though it came in this particular case, it came with an outburst of shame. And I mean, even now I feel tears welling up just remembering the experience. Um, and that's okay because it gave me an insight that I either didn't have before or I was resisting. I was
Mm-hmm.
resisting getting. So I just um, the fact that you're not there yet, I don't know if that means anything because you're where you are,
Well,
and it's
I'm
and
glad you
it's
brought that up.
it's a thing of beauty, John.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And as you were talking, I went to that statement, I'm not there yet. And what I felt was a sadness.
Okay.
And what we're looking for is sadness. Now, if I would have said, with some other tone or excuse, like I did that to that person, and I'm not there yet, or something maybe in another context. And when as you were talking, because I speak to people about their language also, and it's very important. I said that in my humility,
Okay.
and I felt this sink, and see, we're looking for body sensation, which tells me I am there now, okay, which is even still sad. I mean, the depth of this trauma is, I don't have the word, it's insidious, okay, and I intend to heal. And there's so many different things that we don't talk about. It's like the people you and I are interacting have their own journey and their own path, and our ability to connect to them may or may not work, or work at whatever level it's working at, because see, I didn't get sober till 40. Whatever I did before that was, and I'm talking about the pain, the avoidance behavior, the codependency,
Sure.
was part of my journey to experience that and be here now. So with people I work with, it's their choice when, if, how, if they want to.
Right.
Because that is, if it's vital to me that the pain I was creating lasted until I was 40 for me to be here with you and have this conversation, then I wouldn't change it.
Exactly.
So, okay, so I'm going to honor everybody's journey. And not that I don't have feeling about it, disappointment, sadness, angst, desire to say it better or differently, to however that works. And in my statement, I'm not there yet, was this, I felt this desire come up to continue to move to humility. It gets embarrassing. I mean, it's like, okay. Okay, I'm moving through, I'm staying accountable. Wow, yeah. And, I'm experiencing, we get back to the Father's Day thing, I'm experiencing this through a masculine body.
Right.
So male, masculine, father, all that includes, they got this thing going on right now about toxic masculinity. Well, there's value in seeing that men have a proclivity to violence. I mean, it's exemplified in our jails. I want to use a different term, unhealed male. I want to even go as far as to say wounded male. I'm going to say wounded animal, but that, wounded individual, human being, as a man. Okay, that has its own context, as different than female experience, which I have no idea what that is right now. So I see men struggling with being a father, and we live in a society that sometimes doesn't reflect the value that the masculine brings to childbearing. So yeah, I intend to be a loving, caring, nurturing spouse, father, and participant in my community. and be the example. Exemplify what that looks like as I'm going through it, not in my perfection, but in my capacity to introspect and look at myself. So,
Well, thank you for all of that. That's very powerful and moving, and I want to see if we can explore it further. So, in the last thing I heard you say, what jumped into my mind is the relationship of fatherhood, particularly in the traditional Jewish Christian belief of God the Father,
mm-hmm.
the relationship of that to creating. That you said also earlier about, helping teach your kids about how to become authentic adults, or that
Right,
become their own, to be in charge of their own lives, or I forget the words that you used. And
right,
um, I think of the value of paternity here, in this case, the spiritual value, maybe masculinity, but certainly paternity is in the creative, the joy of being a creator. And the thing that we first create in consciousness is ourselves. And what the process is that we've been talking about, particularly for the newcomer, is that we're doing self-creation even in our infancy and our early childhood, before we have the mental capacity to choose and analyze and say yes, no, discard this, add this. We're we're creating our lives mostly by responding to our environment, our emotional environment.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to the extent that we feel unsafe, whatever that might mean to each of us, I don't know if it's the same for all of us, but
Right,
if we don't feel safe, then we experience trauma in the struggle to feel safe. And we sooner or
right,
later adopt what we call in this work a defense mechanism, which is an act of creation. We create a mechanism to defend ourselves from this experience. In Adult Children of Alcoholics, we
yes,
talk about
yeah,
we talk about not everyone to experience the pain of abandonment. And most of that which we're trying to defend against ourselves is in that world of feeling not merely abandonment, but I don't know if you ever had the experience as a kid, but I did, of being in a giant store and all of a sudden not seeing the adult I was with, and feeling utterly
right,
alone and abandoned and freaked out and scared and, panicked. That's the feeling that we're trying to avoid, because if that's as that occurs to us over and over and over again, day after day after day, we don't have any choice but to try to find a way to assuage it, control it, whatever. So
mm-hmm.
the truth is, although that's generated this pool of trauma that we're living with and dealing with today, with some level of enlightenment and clarity, we created that. And what we're doing now is we're learning to consciously create what we want instead. And the way that we do this, uh, again, for the newcomer, is the process is to feel, John said this earlier, to feel the embodied sensation of shame or what fear, whatever it is that rises up when we're having difficulties in our daily lives.
Mm-hmm.
And in the willingness to stay in the feeling, we actually break through into a freedom, because we're in the truth. This is how I feel. What I'm feeling is nothing other than this. There's no opposite to it. This is all there is. I'm feeling shame. And
Right,
when I'm in the truth, then I'm free to create something else. Okay, what do I want? What do I want?
mm-hmm. Yeah,
So this creative principle is associated in the Judeo-Christian tradition with God the Father. I just was just pointing that out, and this is
yeah,
not limited to people of male sex. This is available to all of us.
right, yeah. the staying with the feeling as a child, infant, toddler, child, I had to shut that down.
Right.
And in shutting it down, it got stuffed in. And after that, I created a story about this, why it's post-traumatic stress. This trauma itself isn't the issue. It's what happened to me after the trauma. Was I mirrored and nurtured through that fear of abandonment, like you weren't there? Oh, I see you were afraid, and that's okay. It's, yeah, that's scary, isn't it, to not see me? Instead, how come you're screaming in the store? How come?
Right.
What did you do? You walked away from
Right.
me, and
Right. Where'd you go? Yeah.
Where'd you go? And so now, as an adult in this accountability process, I can bring that feeling up by saying the truth of what I'm doing to avoid the feeling. Addiction. For me, it was alcohol. I drink alcohol. Yeah, this shit rocks. Because it kept me from feeling the pain that I didn't even know what it was. I didn't even know what it was. It's a feeling. And it's a lot of trauma is pre-verbal or nonverbal. So there's no words for it. And what I found in this work, that if I say the truth of where I find myself, current reality, I'm violent, I'm mean. That statement has encoded in it the message that brought it, created it. Now, it created meanness. Well, based on the trauma, that's a good idea because people stay away and I don't have to feel anything because I'm avoiding whatever the issue, however I avoid alcoholism, codependency. So if I just say the truth of where I find myself, I'm mean, that has encoded in it the trauma, and it finally gets felt. When I say that I'm mean, without blame or judgment, this is a key part of our accountability process. If I say I'm mean and I like I'm an asshole and why did I do that? That's not blame, that's blame and judgment or justification. So I'm mean, just feel the truth of that. That creates the emotion that validates the trauma. This, I mean, there's this, oh my God, there's a frequency that I find myself in, that's emotion, feeling, tone. That's in alignment with the trauma that said this was a good idea. Alcoholism it really worked well to keep me safe and alive. And it goes, oh, thank you. Gratitude. And this is all pre-verbal, this is nonverbal, because I feel it. I feel an expansion or a sloughing. And I watch people say some stark, crazy truth, like I'm mean to the point of cruelty, or I'm worthless. And in the breath, you see this you see this shift, you see this easing, you see the shoulders drop, you see the face come back. And then if they haven't done it at the first time or second time, we lead them to, okay, based on that, you don't have to say what that was, just feel it. What do you want? I intend to be kind. I'm mean. Oh my God. I intend to be kind, which is a directive to this creative mechanism to seek and find kindness for us, just like it sought and found meanness to keep us safe.
Exactly.
It's incredible. Yeah. Oh my God. And then it's like I can feel it now all the way through my body. And then we do it again. Or we talk about it because that process, this language that we're speaking, no blame, no judgment, accountability, just say where you're at, is foreign. It's like I grew up in a language context where get it right, don't be lazy, get off your ass, quit your complaining. And this sounds like complaining or poor me. No. Okay, nice deep breath. I intend to be kind, which reframes the trauma, heals the trauma from which the action came. And when I insert, I intend to be kind, I intend to be gracious, I intend to be generous, this creative mechanism is now charged, commanded to seek and find this. And it can, because holy cow, without my help, it found alcoholism, meanness, violence. It found it all for it. I didn't grow up, I like, what's your goal to be in life? I want to be a violent, mean, self-centered, arrogant asshole. But
Drunk.
see that, drunk, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're just using the mechanism that enable us to survive through this pain to heal, recognize, validate the pain, and create another level of frequency. And then we just pay attention. Oh, what's different? That's one of the questions I asked in my group. What's different? Well, I just experienced myself taking a breath where I would normally hit the table. I don't know. So, oh yeah, okay, cool. And that just happened. It didn't like, oh, now I'm fixed. Now the next asshole that irritates me, I'm not going to hit the table. It's not a conscious thought, and it happens. And then you go, oh, wow, something's different. How did I get to this different? Oh, I was accountable. I said that thing about myself I didn't want to admit. I didn't want to admit I'm an alcoholic. I didn't want to admit that. I didn't want to admit I'm mean and violent. And when I did, without blame or judgment, and that's what the 12-step gave me. I could go to a 12-step meeting, say whatever. Just, and everybody goes, thank you for sharing. It's like, no criticism. You're not going to tell me what to say different. You're not going to say, well, you should have said this instead of said that. No, thank you for sharing. And then most of the time, I didn't even remember what I shared. It's like, oh my God, I didn't bore you. And they're going, no, that was great. It's like, what? Okay. Yeah. When I got into that recovery, after about 5 years, I was going, okay, what's next? And there was workshops. John Bradshaw was popular at the time. Other Aston workshops. So I started going to those, and which accelerated my recovery process. And I've always wanted a second level. What's the next step? Because I mean, I have 35 years. I had, when this started, I had 10 years, 10, 11 years. And I was still finding myself in this reactive place, knowing I didn't want to be there. Sober, it's like I didn't have the excuse, I'm drunk. I forgot. No, sober, I'm in, this sucks. And when I started working in the jails, it just all came together. There's not just one thing. There's my life path and all different things that happen. Boom, this body of material came out in this process. So it's amazing. I'm amazed. I'm grateful. Grateful man.
So if you're open to it, I'd like to revisit the not there yet thing.
Okay.
So as I'm listening to you, what jumped into my mind is the question of it's the journey, not the destination.
Yeah.
So would you be willing to consider the there that you are at is to have inculcated in yourself, with your higher power support, whether you believe, the capacity to do this as your first line of response to what's going on with you?
Yes. Yeah.
So in the what's different category, I'd like to, if you're open, I'd like to share the story of what happened to me, because it's
okay.
It's utterly analogous to this. And maybe I'm just saying this for me and not for you, but one of the things that I struggle with still today is how to be with different political perspectives. And that's part of it is because I've been involved in politics since I was 13 years old. And that's just something that's an avocation. I was
Yeah.
drawn to it. I can maybe explain why and all that stuff. In fact, what I'm about to share with you may give an insight into that. But I was visiting with a friend of mine who's
Okay.
lives down in Marin County, and he's kind of a conventional Marin County liberal Democrat, and I'm not a liberal Democrat. And we're
Right. Yeah.
sharing, and so we look at things differently, and there's a lot of evidence that's become coming out even in the mainstream media about the likelihood that this COVID thing was engineered in a laboratory in China, and that
Hmm.
was originally called a conspiracy theory and blah blah blah. Now there's a shift to, well, maybe this is what actually happened. So I'm sending him some information about that, and he sends me a note back. Well, that's not really. I don't really believe that, and or that doesn't prove the case. And in fact, even the way I'm talking about it, that's I'm putting my gloss on it. So I'm sitting there and I'm pissed off at him. I'm sitting at my computer reading his email, and I'm like, God damn it, what is wrong with you? Blah blah blah. Now, because of this training, what I noticed, the first thing I noticed is I was feeling upset, and I was like, okay, this is information to me that this is the issue's not the issue. This is not about my friend. This is not about COVID. This is not about laboratories in Wuhan. This is about me. So what's going on?
Right.
And so I did the practice. I went into my feeling. I felt my gut was churning, and what showed up for me is I'm still trying to fix the world. And if I'm trying to fix the world, then I'm trying to fix me. And so the information that came to me is that there's a traumatized part of me that still thinks there's something wrong with me, and that I
Yep.
still am defective, unworthy, and I'm on that treadmill of trying to work as hard as I can to fix things and never getting there because that's trying to do the impossible. So I sat with that, and I'm sitting there, I'm crying, and I'm feeling, my face is that blobby thing that happens when we cry, and
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
then it came to me, I'm the unhealed part is a little 1-year-old boy trying to save his mother from the effects of the death of my brother when I was one,
Oh, wow.
and and
Wow.
utterly utterly incapable of doing this.
Oh, yeah.
And so then I
Oh,
sat there
my
with that. It's like, you know what? I I I can't do it. I couldn't do it. I
God.
can't do it.
No.
I
No.
So what do I want? So now it's like, okay, what I want is I want to let myself off the hook. I want to relieve little Marty of the necessity to fix his mom and save the world, which gets
Right.
translated into this political grandiosity, and if only people saw it my way,
Right.
we'd all blah 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 blah. And it has all that
Yeah.
energy to it. It has all
Yep.
that family of origin, body chemistry energy to it. And so I realized so the last thing I realized is, I'm not trusting God here. And I intend to let go and let God. I intend to I intend to be not responsible for the world. In
Right.
fact, I give myself permission
Wow.
to be irresponsible. And so the point I'm making is that because of this training, I was able to go through all that. That was probably a 15-minute process.
Hmm.
And part of it was like, oh God, I'm gonna have to confess this to Dan and John, and like I'm still fucked up and blah blah. And I thought, well, screw that.
Right.
That's not true. That's
No.
not true. What's true is that I've learned a process to befriend those parts of me that in the past I would have just turned into turmoil,
Right.
pushing people away, getting into fights, and then feeling rotten and miserable about myself and what's wrong with me, and just back in the spiral, or family of origin, body chemistry, feeling back at
Hmm.
home, surrounded by my defense mechanism, safe and sound and isolated.
Right.
So I'm telling you all this. because partly because you know, your dad and you can tell Sonny's done a good job. And the other part is because I think that's where I am. And it's like not there yet. I am there. And
Mm-hmm.
so the point being, I now have these tools, and it's like it was my it was the spontaneous it was the spontaneous realization that showed up for me as I was being about my friend. It's like
Right.
I didn't stay there because my practice kicked in. It's like, okay, what's really going on? It's like, wow. So I just in sharing this with you and sharing this with the people that are watching, I'm telling you, this process changes our lives, and it gives me the freedom to create something different in the midst of ancient adversity and shame and guilt and
Mm-hmm.
old traumatic experiences. Like, you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it
No.
taught me something. It gave me the opportunity to create anew what I want. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that's the that's you know, when we say we're not there yet, uh, I I think I think I'm there with respect to at least having mastered this material. Now, do I keep working at it? You bet. I want to master it
Yeah,
better
yeah.
and better. But
Yeah, yeah.
that's just that's out of choice. That's out of my creative choice of continuing to create myself as a loving child of a loving God, and want to I want to create myself in the image and likeness. I want to know that. I mean, it's I've already been created in that image and likeness according to the Christian tradition. Now I want to know that and experience that is what I wake up in the morning with.
You stopped there a little bit, but yeah, yeah. Um, and I intend to continue to do this work whenever it
Exactly.
shows up and is available to me. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm there. I'm willing to continue to
Yeah.
self-examine.
Yeah. I continue to know myself deeper and deeper
Mm-hmm.
is another way of saying that.
Yeah,
So
deeper and
that's
deeper.
to me that's the essence of fatherhood at the spiritual level. It's the
Mm-hmm.
creator. And what we didn't what we weren't taught in our childhood. And I went to Jesuit high school. I mean, I was gifted with some pretty slick education stuff. And the Jesuits, you know, they're no slouches when it comes to this stuff. They didn't teach me any of this.
Right. No, no,
Even as
zero.
their rich mystical tradition going back to Ignatius Loyola, they didn't teach me this. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong. I'm not saying they were bad. I'm just saying
Right, right.
this is I mean, you and I have talked about this before. There's very few people who have synthesized the work the way you have that allowed me to penetrate the smokescreen of my childhood defenses,
Mm-hmm.
not for any purpose other than liberating that little kid from the need to fix the world, save his mother, save himself when there was nothing to be saved from.
Yeah.
Only he didn't know that because
Right,
he didn't feel safe.
right.
So now I have the tools
Wow.
to be a self-conscious creator.
Yeah. I also want to note that in your accountability, the trauma, unhealed trauma, blocks our access to our imagination, inspiration, and intuition. And you're spontaneously going to that 1-year-old sibling dying, protecting mom is what we're capable of. We're capable of knowing everything in our past through, um, if our survival mechanism isn't turned on, fight, flight, freeze, please, which is the reactive mode, accusatory mode, the victim mode, uh, And when we break through that, we're in this field where we have access to things our five senses won't give us: see, hear, taste, touch, smell, through our feeling emotional bodies, which are bigger. You mentioned boundaries. They're bigger than our physical bodies, which give us access to this creative capacity. And I've said that before. We're creative beings. The bad news is we created the life that we find ourselves in through subconscious unknowns, trauma, complex post-traumatic stress. If I own that I created this chaos and drama, oh my God, I'm a creator. What do I want? Oh, I'm a drama queen, chaos producing, manipulative. Nice deep breath. I intend to live in the flow. Well, this mechanism knew enough to get me to drama and chaos without my permission. It'll get me to in the flow in spite of me, in spite of what I think I know better than myself. The rational mind is an emissary of the heart. And I want to say the right, left hemisphere. The rational mind, left hemisphere, is an emissary. In other words, it moves me. It is a actuator of movement and will. I'm finding myself in an action, which before was violent, confrontive. Now I'm finding myself in an action, which is open and listening. That all comes from the same place. It's a reflection of what's in there. Now it's reflecting a lot of healed trauma in where I find myself. And good news, bad news for me is that when I spontaneously go into a judgment or rage, opportunity, because this just created this to keep me safe. And I go, oh, thank you. Wait a minute, no, I'm judgmental and rageful. Nice deep breath. Yeah, of course I am. I intend to be kind. I intend to be, I don't know, peaceful. I intend to notice what I feel it, and express it all in the same moment. And things become different, and I keep doing this. And I want different. I want different. Yeah. So I can make a choice in the present moment, living from my subconscious pool, filtered through my survival mechanism, is a reactive place. Healing the trauma, I've come into a choice place where the reaction isn't as quick, the stimulus, and then, oh my God, I gotta, what do I want? I want to take a breath and listen. I want to move away. I want to move closer. Something comes to me out of what I couldn't access before, which was options in that present moment. And my two options before my recovery were hit it or leave it. Those are my options. I either punch you in the face or move away. Now, in between those two options, I have a myriad of choices. So.
Yeah, and
wow.
What tends to happen the more we do this work is that we start identifying with the creative truth. Yeah. And we start to know ourselves as the creator of whatever the hell we want to create. So like what you just said, I can still create, punch it or fly away, run away from it, because I can do that by conscious choice. And I can look for all kinds of other options in between or beyond that. And part of the joy of life is, for me, it's like, what can I do differently just for the fun of it?
Right.
Not just because it's a good thing to do, but because it's a joyful thing to do. Mm-hmm. I intend to enjoy every day of my life is one of my intentions. Like I don't know what that means practically for today. we'll just see what happens.
Mhm.
Life will
Yeah.
show up, and it's my choice whether to enjoy it or run away from it. Pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Very good.
Well,
Good stuff.
I had a bunch of other stuff on the list to talk about, but I guess we'll save it for next time.
Yep. We'll get it next time.
Since we've run out of time. As always, I'd like to invite people who are watching this for the first time, if you'd like to participate in our accountability practice meetings where we actually we support each other in going through these steps that John and I both talked about, and the work, what we do, what we've done in our own lives. John's been doing this for 25 years, did you say?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've been doing it for 12. So, you know, it takes work, it takes patience, it takes a certain level of discipline, and that's where the groups support us. So if you're interested, we have meetings Mondays and Thursdays at 6:30, Wednesdays at 4, and Saturday morning at 8:30. Those are all
Mhm.
Pacific time, and they're all on Zoom. So if you'd like to get the Zoom address at the end of the podcast, there'll be an email address for me or John, and we'll be happy to send you the address, the URLs for the
Okay.
Zoom room.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
so as always, John, last word, any wrap up thoughts?
Um, no, not today. I'm blank. It's like I'm good. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm grateful for this opportunity to do this with you, Marty. It really assists me in sorting, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, me too, John. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.
Oh, I think you froze. Okay.